Scotland, my God, I know this is not you because I have seen you in qualifiers, all right? I know that this is not you. And I know that this team is better than what we saw today. I thought Steve Clark, every decision he made was terrible. I think there's a difference between paying respect to your opponent and just straight up bowing to them. And I think there's a difference between parking the bus and parking a bus that doesn't work. Why would you start with 5 at the back and sit? It wasn't a mid block. It wasn't a low block. You allowed Toni Kroos to do whatever he wanted. You can't do that. Just because he's leaving Real Madrid doesn't mean that he's retiring from the game. Like, he's going to do some things. I just think that it was a really silly, naive way to attack this kind of game. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should be gegenpressing or trying to force the game and be physical, but you got to do something more. You got to be up in their face. You got to be really clinical in the midfield. I think Unai Emery is probably taking all his airs out just by watching what Steve Clark, where he places John McGinn, because he's not placing him in the right place. He didn't even touch the ball in the first 15 minutes. So, obviously everybody, or almost everybody, if you were not part of the Tartan army, were going with a Germany win. But the way that they did it today was just way, way too easy. And I know that the Scottish dressing room is going to be very disappointed.
LME, about 90 seconds in, somehow you worked Unai Emery into this show, the Aston Villa manager. I mean, nobody had that on the bingo card.
I won't do it again, I promise.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Tom, let's go to you, because to your point, like, during that first goal, I was like literally yelling at the screen, like, close down Kroos. He was just standing back there, sprays the ball wide, good ball by Kimmich and the pullback, good runs into the box, creating that first goal. But it was a commanding performance, Tom. Do you think the Germans, is this who we should have expected in this game, or was this even how dominant they were a little bit of a surprise, or was Scotland's surprise being this poor?
Well, judging by the singing I can hear here in Cologne, they're extremely happy with the result. So I think the party's fully started out there. But look, as we said, Scotland played with this high line with absolutely zero pressure on the ball. Like, the German midfield had an absolute free rein. I don't think Scotland basically strung together a pass in the final third until the closing stages. They were so passive and completely played into Germany's way of playing. Like, I don't know if they'd ever seen a Nagelsmann team before. He plays vertically. He moves the ball quickly. Right? You're going to have to put pressure on them to stop them. And time again, Kroos had the freedom of the pitch. Havertz was fantastic up front as well, in that false 9 role. And then you got Musiala and Florian Wirtz, who are the 2 of the best attacking midfielders in the world at the moment. So it was a really strange, passive Scotland performance. And I think, look, a lot's been made of the fans here, and they are absolutely unreal. There's about 200,000 Scottish fans who've travelled over to Germany. Many of them won't even go to anywhere near the games. They're just here for the party. And you actually do feel for them, because that team tonight, it was just a really, really poor all-round performance. For Germany, pretty much the ideal opener, really. Like, they can be really nervy occasions, especially when you're hosts. You have like the whole expectation of a country. They've been through this upheaval over the last couple of years with Hansi Flick and Nagelsmann. But what an absolute dream of an opener. Like, coming through that, you have full crew coming on. You have, players like Gundogan coming through, and even, I'm sure we'll touch on it, but he was fantastic as well. And, probably quite lucky to avoid serious injury as well for that penalty. And look, an absolute dream of an opening for Germany. And the fans are going to be singing long into the night here.
Tom, let me ask you about that real quick, because whenever they had the Euro 2020, which of course took place in the summer of 21, I remember talking to Archie Rin-Tut in studio and him saying there was a malaise with German fans. And now we were hearing reports and people that are there, it feels different. It feels like is this team capable of kind of capturing that magic we saw in the 06 World Cup? And does this start help them do that?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, it'd be great if so. I mean, Germany needs a strong team, and you need the host to stay in, or else the buzz goes out of a competition pretty quickly. And look, from here, walking around Cologne earlier today, the fan park was absolutely packed 3 hours before kickoff. So many Germany shirts around, a lot of them with Füllkrug. I think he might be a bit of a sort of a cult hero here, but look, it's absolutely everywhere. Balloons all around the place. So much beers being drunk and songs being sung. I mean, here in Cologne, we've got Switzerland playing Hungary here tomorrow. So there's loads of those fans here, and just so many Scots as well. But look, I think so. And I think this win, in terms of easing pressure, I mean, obviously there's going to be pressure the whole way through, but easing those sort of nerves, it's just an absolutely ideal night for them. 5 goals, could have been more. They didn't really have to get out of second gear. Toni Kroos had an armchair ride the whole way through. It's just pretty much the perfect opening for them.
LME, let me ask you about the 2 young stars that scored for Germany. Florian Wirtz scored. Now he's the youngest German to score in a European championship. Musiala scored the second goal in the game. He's now the second youngest to score. They're separated by about 100 days or so. When you look at these two, not everybody watches the Bundesliga. Some people may have read about them or followed them. Are these two going to have two of the biggest breakout performances, you think, in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it started that way, right? I mean, we know about Wirtz and what he's done, of course, in the Bundesliga campaign. You mentioned already his numbers, and specifically now for club and country. Jamal Musiala, somebody that I've known for a while, because obviously he grew up in England. He could have chosen England to represent as well, Chelsea Academy, Fulham as well, and then eventually, relocating to Germany. The fact that he is now a major component of this German national team is unbelievable. And here's the thing, they fit the Nagelsmann system so well. I mean, Musiala, for example, the way that he's able to operate in very tight spaces at that age is remarkable to me. And Wirtz, we saw with his goal, so instinctive in everything that he makes. And I like the balance in the German national team. I like the fact that we're talking about Toni Kroos and Ilkay Gundogan, but we're also talking about a couple of 21-year-olds as well. And that's really important in a major tournament, because you need that balance. You can't just rely on experience and leadership, because those legs could go towards the end of the game. And at the same time, you need that kind of energetic, youthful appliance, specifically when you're going forward. And I think that, at the very beginning, specifically towards the end of 2023, Germany was still trying to figure themselves out. When Nagelsmann came in, they actually came up with a couple of really good victories leading up to this tournament as well. But they're now showing, just like Tom was saying, the Nagelsmann way of playing, which is like vertical football. Make sure that you penetrate, make sure that you take advantage of what you have. And Scotland just basically opened the doors for them to do it. So I think it's going to be obviously harder when they play the likes of Switzerland and Hungary, who, by the way, are a very talented team. And obviously when they get into the knockout stages. I have 3 teams better than them in this tournament, Dalen. France, England, and Portugal. But after that, to me, it's Germany. And then Spain, I think, creeping in as well, because they are comfortable being at home. They are understanding the Nagelsmann system. They have the balance of youth and experience. And if you allow them, they will absolutely destroy you. By the way, Ryan Porteous joins a very reputable resume right here alongside one of our colleagues. He's the first Scottish player to be sent off in a major tournament.
Why is Craig catching strays? Craig
Burley in 1998. You got to give it to them right there. But the one thing that I will say about Scotland very quickly, by the way, is that if you noticed, when they had 10 men, they played exactly the same way when they had 11. And that's a really not a good thing at all. They had 0 shots, not just on target, 0 shots. And Tom was talking about the passiveness, and I totally agree. And I think we're going to see better performances in the remaining matches as well. This is not the Scotland that I'm used to, but Germany today showed everybody what they're about, and learning under a great, great tactical manager, Nagelsmann, who I believe, I've always thought that he definitely suits better for a national team than he does club.
Let me come to you with this, Tom, because LME did say he thinks Germany's the 4th best team in this. Do you concur with that assessment, or how would you kind of power rank it? Because the bookies right now have, we'll get to that in a few minutes, have Germany 3rd at 5-1. How do you handicap it?
Yeah, probably about right, I think. Look, there's always going to be a bolter who comes out of nowhere in these tournaments. It always happens, where a team hits form at the right time and one of the so-called giants collapses. We saw it in Qatar, with the way that Germany went there. So look, but what I really like is the way that Nagelsmann's got this group, and as LME touched on, with this blend of youth and experience. Like, you bring on Thomas Muller to close out a game. Well, not really close it out, you're already 4-0 up, but you bring on Thomas Muller. I mean, what an absolutely brilliant sort of figure he'd be to have around camp. And then you've also got the options, you've got variety as well, which we haven't seen in the past, perhaps. And look, there are question marks over the central defence. Like, they're kind of missing, the big names there, but you've got Rudiger and you've got Jonathan Tah, who played well. And again, they really didn't have to do much today. They got that brilliant left back who had an unbelievable season at Stuttgart. So they've got this really, really good balance. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they do cope with the expectation here, because it can go both ways. It can either unite a team and it can sort of be the fuel behind the fire, or it can lead to stage fright. So we'll see. I think so far that tonight would just be, as I said, the perfect intro. And I think overall, it's going to be fascinating to see how Spain go. That group which Spain are in, which I'm sure we'll touch on later with Italy, Croatia, and Albania, is brutal. And of course, with the new way that the tournament's going, 3rd place teams will make it into the knockouts. But look, I think in terms of where Germany are, I think as people will be saying, we don't necessarily yet know how good they are and how bad Scotland were. So it's either a case of were Germany brilliant and Scotland okay, or were Scotland awful and Germany just kind of had to go through the gears. So we'll find out that, I think, in the next couple of games. But I think LME's power rankings are about right there. I think that's pretty much spot on.